We have an update in the Neil Gaiman situation, which has been very, very quiet over the last year. I'll note that while there were a slew of cancellations from publishers of him when all this was breaking into the media, a lot of that got walked back over the last year, and he's on the cover of a lot of people's books that are coming out even right now with little blurbs. For some reason, Neil Gaiman ends up on blurbs of people's book covers more than anybody else. It's like, this is a magical adventure, Neil Gaiman. You know those little quotes that authors get on their feeds. This is still going on even now. He is touted as the industry's leading fantasy author. And it seems like his strategy of just go completely quiet on social media, let it blow over, has pretty much worked in his favor as all this transpired. Now, his case against that Scarlett Pavlovich filed against him got thrown out yesterday. We'll go over the details of why that's not something of his vindication or innocence or anything like that, but this is just a situation that's probably just going to get buried now because they tried to bury it to begin with. If you don't remember how this all went last year, this was one of the only channels that was covering it right away, and it took months and months and months and months for the media to catch up and actually look at it and go, wait a minute, this guy's pretty creepy, and he is pretty creepy, and he's preyed on a lot of young girls. This is not something that's an allegation. It is absolutely out there, and he's pretty much admitted to a bunch of this stuff, just that it was, quote, all consensual. So this is pretty interesting to look at, and we'll get into this case in just a moment. Please hit the like and subscribe button as we talk about all things here. This is the real fantasy news you won't get anywhere else. Really appreciate you being here, and we cover all of the horrors that are going on in traditional publishing because it is just a crazy, terrible industry filled with a lot of crazy, terrible people. And that's exactly why we fight against it here with our own independent works as well. We don't just talk about the culture, we make it ourselves. I write fantasy and science fiction, and I would love for you to check this out. It's in the description below. You get on my newsletter, you get 3 free books from me. I'm going to be launching a crowdfund campaign for my new books soon. I want you to be here so that I don't lose you. And 3 free books is a great prospect for that. So get on this, and thank you guys for checking things out. A little something for everybody. I give a sci-fi, a fantasy, and a graphic novel. And I write very prolifically, so there's something to check out all the time, which is a lot of fun for people who are part of the community. So thank you for being here. Get on this, and if you want to check out my Amazon books, those are in the description below as well, and I appreciate everybody who supports. So, Neil Gaiman's legal team wins a jurisdictional battle as the sexual assault case gets dismissed from Wisconsin court. Now, I've got the actual filing right here. We can go over a bit of it. Plaintiff Scarlett Pavlovich worked as defendant Neil Gaiman's nanny for a short time in 2022. She alleges that Gaiman used the promise of a job to sexually assault her numerous times over the span of weeks. She asserts the claim of Trafficking Victims Protection Act as well as state common law. Pavlovich's allegations are serious and disturbing, depicting Neil Gaiman as predatory, cruel, and sadistic. Gaiman denies Pavlovich's allegations, but the issue before the court is not whether her allegations are true. And this is where a lot of people are going to miss this and celebrate, acting like, oh, this vindicates him and all that, because people don't actually look at the details of things very often. That's why we're here. But that's not it. The court is not looking at whether they're true or not, right? Rather, Gaiman moves to dismiss the case on procedural grounds as he asserts 2 primary arguments. First, he says the case does not belong in the United States because of all the alleged conduct occurred while both parties were living in New Zealand, where Pavlovich is a citizen and Gaiman is a permanent residency status. Second, he says the civil enforcement provisions of the TVPA do not apply to extraterritorial conduct, and the court should not exercise supplemental jurisdiction over state law claims. Both arguments have merit, is what the judge says, and the first issue is dispositive, so it's not necessary to resolve the second. The only connection to the Wisconsin United States has with the lawsuit is that Gaiman has a residence in the state, and he may live here concurrently. All the relevant events occurred in New Zealand. Pavlovich is a New Zealand citizen. Both parties are living in New Zealand during the relevant time, and all relevant evidence and most potential witnesses are in New Zealand. Gaiman and Amanda Palmer now live in the United States, but both of them have agreed to accept service in New Zealand. Under these circumstances, it is clear that New Zealand is the more appropriate forum for resolving this dispute, so the court will dismiss the case without prejudice. If Pavlovich sues Gaiman in New Zealand and he refuses to accept service there, then Pavlovich may move to reopen the case. So this is all this is about here. They just said procedurally, this didn't happen in Wisconsin. We don't have any say over this. That's all. go deal with this New Zealand. Now, I think that she filed this case to begin with in Wisconsin, one, because Gaiman is there, of course, and that's easy to serve him in that level. Secondly, is the fact that New Zealand's laws are not as stringent on this kind of thing, and I think there is a statute of limitations that may have expired in this that has not expired in the United States, from what I've gathered from this course case so far. So the standing in New Zealand is actually a lot harder to get out there and to convict somebody than it would have been in the United States. And I think she felt like she had a fair shot here to do so. So this might have been the only shot to actually go and actually get something done about this. And that's very, very sad. We'll see what happens and if she does go back to New Zealand on this front, on this count. But we got to remember, there's more to this than just this. There's her incident. There's another incident where, and she was actually paid off with hush money and a non-disclosure agreement from Neil Gaiman to not talk about any of this stuff. And so he tried to use that, which is illegal, to have a coercive sort of non-disclosure agreement about a crime and the like, of course. He actually did this with a fan as well. A fan said that, she felt like he creeped on her and went a little too far with her. He did the same thing. He actually paid for her therapy bills as part of the settlement that he did with her. So we have 2 settlements right away that do have non-disclosure agreements. And the third one actually is probably the worst out of all of them, that there was a woman living on his residence who was the wife of the gardener in New York. And that gardener and her divorced. Neil Gaiman then had her there, and she claimed that she could not afford to live there, and that Neil Gaiman made her trade sexual favors in order to live there. And that was an odd thing. All of them have said creepy things happened, that Neil Gaiman was willing to do sexual things with them, even with children around in the room present, and that was her testimony on that. It was absolutely sickening when looking at that. Again, she was paid off a few $100,000 and a non-disclosure agreement, told not to talk about it. And so he has these non-disclosure agreements, which I'm sure he's going to go after them for in some sort of retaliatory manner at this point. And there's not a lot that can be done here. Now, that's a creepy thing for New York and a crazy, of course, illegal thing going on right there. That's 3 of them. Now, there were 7 different instances of women who have come forward in this situation. It's very similar to like what we saw with like Bill Cosby back in the day, where it's like once a couple came forward, even more came forward. And this is just kind of sad that the court, of course, is tossing this aside because of jurisdictional grounds. And on top of it, like I said, everything's kind of been walked back in the publishing industry as well. Neil Gaiman's a cash cow. The Sandman, the season just aired on Netflix this year. They tried to get all the PR talking about that, and there was a PR firm actually hired to go through bought out social media, with bots, and actually just talk about the Sandman and Neil Gaiman's works to try to change the search engine optimization so that people would not discover information about this. It was very coordinated. A huge Hollywood PR firm worked on that, and of course, like I said, he went social media silent, disappeared himself during this whole process. I think his whole point was to try to memory hole all of this stuff, because when this all came out, nobody would cover it. The media was silent. They were all complacent with it. They didn't do anything. It was only until the New Yorker actually dropped those bombshell interviews that showed the gory details of this stuff that anybody actually said anything at the very beginning of this year. And I think it is just a thing that's going to go away again at this point. So leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Do you think justice was served here? Do you think that more investigation is warranted? Or do you think that this is all just going to go away? He seems like he's a protected class, because that others do not get the same treatment in the media. It's only the nice feminist liberal men who always do, right? It's very interesting how this always works. Please hit the like and subscribe button, like I said, and join my newsletter. It's in the description below. Really appreciate you guys for being here and reading. We'll be back soon.